Hi everyone. Today we learn a topic of social science, sectors of Indian economy. So what are these sectors? Where are they useful? How are they useful? Now we will be learning in this particular lesson. So firstly, we will check our previous knowledge about what we know about these sectors. Firstly, occupational structure. What is occupational structure? We have learned in our 9th standard that each and every human being will be engaged in one or the other work for their livelihood. That work which we earn money by doing such a work, we call it as occupation. So here we have three sectors in the occupational structure. They are primary, secondary, tertiary. These are also called as the sectors of Indian economy. So now let's go into the topic and let us learn what is this primary, secondary and tertiary sector, how they deal, what they deal and what is the usage of its importance in economy. Firstly, we learn something about primary sector. Primary sector. Primary, the name itself says as something basic. So here we have the basic needs or things, requirement what we produce, that we call that goods and things comes under the primary sector. So what are the things comes under primary sector? We will see now. Yeah. Agriculture, allied activities of agriculture and mining. All these comes under the primary sector. Why? Because these are the goods which are produced by making use of the natural resources. What are the things? Natural resources. So what natural resources are utilized in the production of these primary goods? So can anyone guess what are the natural things can be utilized? For example, sunlight, air, water. These are the three things what we call as a natural phenomena or natural resources. By making use of these resources, more or less the goods in the primary sector will be produced. So we call them as a primary sector. Examples already we have discussed earlier: agriculture, allied activities of agriculture and mining. So agriculture, the growing of crops, the crop production is completely depending on the usage of the natural resources like sunlight, air and water. So these are the three things which will be more important for the production of the goods in the primary sector. Secondary sector. So what are the secondary sector? So if you people are interested, I will share a best example for you people in this. The thing is, what are the basic requirements for the human beings? If we come in order, say for example, in order, food, cloth, shelter. They are the three basic requirements for the human beings. Food is a primary thing which is very essential and without which we cannot live. Food means everything comes under this, like water, pizza, burger, cold drink, whatever it might be. Everything comes under this food itself. So food is a primary thing or the requirement what we need. So already we discussed food we get from the primary sector. Next is cloth. In order, second importance is given to the cloth. Whereas cloths are manufactured, they are made in an industry. So that comes second place. So the same way here we have the secondary sector is also called as industrial sector. Industrial sector. Because goods are manufactured here by making use of the raw materials which are produced in the primary sector. Examples of the secondary sector are cloths, pen, biscuit, watch, etc. and many more things. What are the things? Manufactured goods. The goods which are manufactured by making use of the raw material and made into a final good or a good ready to the consumer, that goods are called as a secondary sector goods or the industrial goods. So this sector is called as a secondary sector or the industrial sector. So in sequence, next what we have is tertiary sector. So tertiary sector. In sequence, if you people remember, previously we have discussed food, cloth and shelter. Food is manufactured in primary sector, clothes are manufactured in secondary sector, whereas now shelter means the construction which comes under the tertiary sector. What is produced here? In primary sector, raw material are produced. In secondary sector, manufactured goods are produced. Then what is produced in tertiary sector? Tertiary sector produces services. What it produces? Services. Tertiary sector produces services. Service. What kind of service? When we require or when we take the help of other person to fulfill our needs and requirements, that we call as a service. So tertiary sector is also called as a service sector because it produces only one product, that is services. So it is also called as a service sector. Now this service sector, what are the things included in this service sector? The one is the most important and very crucial one, education. Next, health, transportation, telecommunications or communication. Anyways, all these things comes under the service sector because all here we get, what we get is a service. Say for example, when you go to a school, you pay certain fee and you will be getting service in return to you. As when you go to a shop and when you want to buy something, you pay the money and you get the product. The same way here, what you get for your money is the service in all these sectors. So this is called as a service sector. Education, health, transportation, communication. All these things comes under the service sector. So this sector is also known as the tertiary sector, as we discussed earlier. Tertiary sector only named as a service sector because we get service in this particular sector. So now, which sector is most important? If we think over this, then as we discussed, primary sector, secondary or tertiary sector, which sector is most important? So that we will see in our upcoming topic, comparison of sectors. In our upcoming topic, comparison of sectors. Comparison of sectors. If we compare the three sectors, one is primary, secondary and tertiary. So these three sectors, if we compare which sector is most important, let us think. As we said, basic requirements, food is very important and we can't survive without food. So we consider primary sector as the most important. Sure, primary sector is most important. Then now, for example, if I am a farmer, I am producing cotton and sugarcane in my agricultural field. So I have 100 acres of land. I cultivated 50 acres of sugarcane and 50 acres of cotton. Now, the question is, what I will be doing with that crops? After the harvest, I need to sell that in the market. If there is no secondary sector, then what is the use and purpose of my cultivation of cotton and sugarcane? That means, if I am producing something, definitely there is a person to make use of that particular material or the goods. So, secondary sector is also very important. So, without secondary sector, primary sector cannot exist. Sure. Now, the person has came, secondary sector, purchased my cotton as well as my sugarcane also. Now, the question is, how that will be transported, how that product will be taken from my agriculture field to that particular industry. For that sake, we require transportation, what we discussed as a important part of the tertiary sector. So, without transportation, the goods cannot be transported from primary sector to secondary sector. So, we require transportation. So, in this regard, tertiary sector is also very important. So, now come to a conclusion that without the existence of the one sector, the other sector cannot exist. So, we cannot say only one sector is important. All the three sectors are equally important and interdependent on one another for their existence. So, with this, we conclude that the three sectors are equally important and interdependent or interconnected with each other for their existence. So, now, just once we will revise what we have been learned in our previous topics before going to the further topic. We have been discussed about the three topics, three sectors, what are the three sectors and what are the things included in these three sectors, and also we have learned about the sectors, which sector is important and which sector is not so important. Then we came to a conclusion that all the three sectors are equally important. Now, we'll learn something about GDP. GDP, Gross Domestic Product. What is this? Actually, why do we require this GDP? GDP is a thing which shows us the size of our economy and the position of our economy in the international arena. What is the situation of our country? Whether our country's economy is developing or not. Whether we are in a competition with the development or not. How much development we have been achieved in the past years and in the present situation. All these things we'll come to know through the GDP, that is Gross Domestic Product. How we will be calculating this GDP, Gross Domestic Product? Before that, who will be calculating this GDP? Earlier we have learned the per capita income will be calculated by the total income of a country by the total number of the people, that is total population. What we get is the per capita income or average income we call it. Now, how we get this GDP? GDP is the thing which we calculate through the goods and services. How? See. So GDP will be calculated in this way. Value of final goods and services on all the three sectors in a year within the country. That means in this, but if we take the present situation of our country in this year, okay, now we are in 2018. So in the year of 2018, within the country means because we said gross domestic product. Domestic, that means within the country, because we have many of our Indian companies who are having their production even abroad in other countries also. We are not going to consider that product which are manufactured in other country by our companies. We will be calculating only the product which are manufactured in India by Indian companies. Okay, so that we call as domestic. So gross domestic product. So value of final goods and services in all the three sectors in a year within the country. So whatever the number we get, that we call as a GDP of our country of that particular year. So how we calculate the final goods and services? Say here I give an example. There is a farmer who sells his wheat for 10 rupees per kg. 10 rupees per kg. A farmer is selling his wheat. Then the flour mill person is taking this wheat and he is making the flour with that atta, and then he is selling that for 12 rupees per kg. And this atta or the flour will be utilized for making of biscuit. And the cost of the biscuit is 60 rupees. Okay. Now, the value of the final good is 60 rupees. So, here we consider biscuit as a final product of the wheat as well as wheat flour, and along with that even other things also add like butter or maybe sugar or maybe cookies or maybe like dry fruits or some other thing, whatever it might be. Altogether, the cost of the product has become as a 60 rupees. So here, now we will be paying 60 rupees or 60 plus 12 plus 10. How much we will be paying? In general, we pay only 60 rupees because this 60 rupees includes the value of all, even the wheat also as well as the wheat flour also. So 60 rupees because here wheat is undergone again some changes and made into flour. Again flour has been undergone changes and made into biscuit. But biscuit is not made into undergone any changes. It directly consumed by the consumer, used by the consumer. So the goods and services which are ready to use by the consumer, they are called as the final goods and services. So the value of these final goods and services in all the three sectors in a year within the country, we call that value as a GDP, that is gross domestic product. And this will be calculated by the Central Finance Ministry of our country through a process called Mammoth. What is this Mammoth process? Mammoth means aggregate, large, because India is a vast country which has 29 states and 7 union territories. So to calculate the entire country's data is not so easy thing. So with the help of the state governments as well as union territories and even some other institutions in the states as well as in the union territories, the Central Finance Ministry will be calculating this GDP every year. Next, we'll learn something about how these sectors will be implemented or whether there is a development in the sectors or not. That we'll see in our further class.